Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. President Trump says the U.S. military is way ahead of its initial military timeline on Iran by a lot. So what is ahead for Iran militarily, but also politically? Well, joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Walid Phares. He is an acclaimed Mideast expert. He's also a former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor and the author of many books, including the book called Iran, an Imperialist Republic and U.S. policy. Walid, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Rita, for having me. Always great to be with you.
What do you think is ahead for Iran?
Well, what has been accomplished is not little for the first week. The president projected 4 weeks. Secretary of Defense of War projected even more. But in the first week, there is no more Navy. There is no more Islamic regime Navy. It's done. I mean, 90% of it. That's very important, Rita, because they can't control anymore in an effective way the Persian Gulf waterways, and those have been so essential for our whole world economy. And insurance companies have been very, very concerned about it. So in the first week, there is no more threat there. The second is the destruction of 2/3 of the Air Force. And it's not just the Air Force, but the drone force. They still have enough to continue the threat, but strategically they lost that battle. 3, the ICBMs have been targeted by Israel and by the United States, and soon enough, unless supplied by China and Russia, we don't see signs for this, but who knows? These are the 3 most important strategic weapons. Obviously, you're going to ask me, what about the Khamenei elimination, the number 2 in the history of that Islamic Republic? Well, they are now in disarray. They are traumatized, and it's very difficult for them to issue strategic decisions with the elimination of Khamenei and scores of generals and of commanders. What is ahead of us is the second week and a half of the process, where we can see already that Israeli and Americans, mostly Americans and Israelis, are going after the strategic weaponry, one after the other. The Israelis are focusing more on ammunition, on gas, as we saw, and oil, versus our forces. Our Air Force is focusing on the actual militias, on the Pasdaran, Sepa Pasdaran, IRGC, and the Basij. Because once we weaken those, then the population would unleash, this time in a different way.
Let's go through. You said so many great things there. First off, the accomplishments. How important was it to really eviscerate the Navy? I've seen reports well over 40 ships. How many ships does Iran have, and what kind of ships did they have?
Well, I need to call the CIA to know.
Well, you have some good pipelines, my friend.
Yeah, well, we'll see. The 12 major battleships have been destroyed in the first few days, because these are the main ones. The strategic submarine, which is threatening because it could have the capability of launching missiles or drones that would be equipped with nuclear material. It wasn't, but it was put out of action. So the bulk of the Navy is gone. They may have what I call those dinghies, like maybe those very light, very fast speedboat, but of course, between our task force in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean, they have no chance.
One of the things, too, we heard about, it was the first use of a torpedo by a U.S. ship since World War II. Were you surprised? We've really used some old technology and some new technology.
Sometimes we have to. If we have equipment from World War II that was kept, and then if it was an advantage for us to do it without being seen or without being targeted, that was we had a huge imagination since the 9/11 Commission basically issued their reports, if you recall, in 2004. The one matter where we distinguish ourselves as Americans, born here or overseas, is this imagination that goes well in Hollywood, but also at the Pentagon as well. So, yes, this is to confirm that with the torpedo, we're able to destroy one of the targets.
You know, one of the things you talked about the skies. Obviously, we've taken out a lot of their Air Force, but the drones, as you brought up, Walid, still continue to be a big issue. And some of the drones I saw, I think it was Danny Danon, the consul general there in New York from Israel, showed one of the drones that was taken. And it's amazing because they're not that expensive. It had like a wind turbine, wind propeller, it seemed. Right. But yet they apparently have still been quite destructive, right, just because they fly low. Talk about maybe just what a threat that is, because that seems to be one of the big issues that Iran still has at least a decent supply of.
Yes, exactly, Rita. That's what I said earlier, that we can destroy planes. It's difficult to replace a fighter jet, etc., although they are trying. But I don't see China and Russia being involved because at one point, let me just continue 1 second on this. I don't know if airfields will be available. I mean, in 1 or 2 more weeks, we're going after all the airports, all the airfields, the military ones, obviously. So I don't see flights from China going over Afghanistan, land there with equipment, but it's possible. But drones is going to be a continuous battle. Why? Because they build them in Iran. They build them in tunnels. It's going to be as long as our intervention is there, and probably short of having an Iranian armed opposition, should it be, ethnic, should it be national Iranian, we will see. But short of having a power on the ground by Iranians to go after every single spot where drones are made, it may take that long.
You talked about also China and Russia, and obviously they have relations with Iran. China getting their oil. We've seen reports that Russia was providing intel to Iran about maybe where U.S. military assets are. Talk about the relationship, as you know it, Walid, between China and Russia a little bit, and also obviously vis-a-vis Iran, Maine.
Surely, before the operation, it appeared that China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, maybe if you can, Venezuela had formed a sort of a bloc, international bloc, and they were cooperating, including on the military level. The two big nuclear powers, strategic powers, are Russia and China. Russia, at the end of the day, is very busy in Ukraine. This is a in or out for Ukraine. So I don't think they're going to open a front to come and help the authorities or the regime in Iran. They will have to send them by water through the Caspian Sea. That's not what Russia is ready for, because if they get involved in a second front, they may lose all their advantages in Ukraine. And I think that the president told Putin that there could be an arrangement whereby if he doesn't support Iran, we'll see what we can do in terms of Ukraine. I know this is not official, but these are the equations that could be there. So Russia may not be a big military strategic partner of Iran in case of war. China can. China has no other fronts. It has a lot of material, and it can reach Iran from the east by just flying over Afghanistan. And one would say, what happened to this wonderful base that was in the northern Afghan area that could have played a role? Well, the previous administration had made that mistake. But having said that, China is a communist country, but its policies are capitalist. They don't want to minimize the achievements that they've done. They have a huge market, and President Trump was very close from reaching an agreement with China. So if they want to help the regime in Tehran, they will have to send hundreds of planes to land in eastern Iran. That is not what we see possible right now. They may be sending a little bit. They don't know what the final phase of the U.S.-Israeli campaign in Iran would look like. The president is controlling every negotiation. He's also overseeing every military operation. It's in his own hands.
You know, also, Walid, obviously China buying a lot of oil from Iran at a cheap price. How is that working out now? I would imagine, obviously, that shut off. How is that affecting China? And you brought up a good point, because President Trump is supposed to be going over to China at the very end of this month. This really, I think, has helped his leverage with China because they're in a bit of a box, clearly financially now.
They are, absolutely. But they have our debt. But anyway, it is very possible to project that the president may have told his counterparts in China, I will still have Iran, the next Iran, tell you if you just don't intervene. So that kind of equation could happen. Because China wants to make money, wants to save its own money, has interest in Africa and Latin America. They want a deal. But of course, there are wings within the Chinese government who are looking at Taiwan. And then the other wings, the Shanghai, I think it's called the Shanghai Group, is telling them, that's not what we need right now. We need right now to save our economy because we have a problem and we can have an understanding with Trump. So take it to Iran. It's too late for both Russia and China. I mean, if they wanted to defend that regime, they would have placed 300,000 soldiers, a whole fleet of anti-aircraft and aircraft. It was not done. So now it's a little bit late to do it.
Yeah, no, great point, because even if Russia is providing intel, you're right, it seems at this point it's behind the scenes. It's not some big, very powerful show of force. Speaking of force, you talked about what's going on within Iran. And Walid, you understand all the different groups. How much of a fracture are we seeing with the IRGC? Because the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, these are obviously the diehards. How much, is there any break? Are there defections? What are you seeing and how important is that?
That's a great question, Rita. Yes, the IRGC, I call them the SS of the regime in comparison with the Third Reich. These are the IRGC, the high SS. And then you have the Batij, the lower-level militia, which has larger numbers of people because it's deployed in the neighborhood. It's deployed in the cities, in the villages. That is the force that actually control the street, and probably them and the IRGC are responsible for the death of more than 50,000 people. So whatever is going to happen in Iran, those who are responsible for the shooting, the killings of thousands and thousands of people in just 2 to 3 days, they're not going to escape justice. I can see already that there will be a formation of an international tribunal that would most likely look like the end of World War II court.
The Nuremberg, right.
Yeah, that it will have to happen. Now, you asked me about inside the IRGC. I mean, the body after the elimination of Khamenei the first has been shaking. But they know that if they let go, the population is going to go after them. The various resistance movements are going to go after them. That's why I think what it explains this one sentence by President Trump, who told all these commanders, lay down your weapons and we will give you amnesty. Lay down your weapons. And that is a major factor that could affect them. The only question remaining is, you surrender your weapons to somebody. You cannot go to public space, public, places, and then throw the weapons in the city. So that poses the question, Rita, of a transitional government and of actual new Iranian army. All of this has not been yet debated in public, but that is coming weeks from now.
It's powerful, just like you said. Where do they give the weapons to? And do we know how many, or if there's a decent amount of them that are considering giving up the weapons if there is sort of a new transitional government? Do we know if there's enough defections to really make a difference?
There are defections. Actually, defections and messages for defections have appeared since the end of the 12-day war, videos and messaging coming. It's mostly what the intelligence community is dealing with, but also the NGOs. But my assessment is the minute President Trump will appear, it doesn't matter who, but will appear with a federalized, like a large coalition with the minorities, with the majorities, with everybody in, a transitional government or council, if he appears, I can almost guarantee you, although in political science you can't guarantee a thing, that half of these militias will then surrender their weapons. That there will be commanders who would issue statements from their command and say, we are neutral, we're not anymore attacking the population. They will sit there till a regular army comes to them. Now, we all know that the president is not sending the U.S. Army. They may be sending special forces, Delta Force, Marines, etc., for certain operation, but certainly not to manage or occupy Iran.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So now, how do you see that next phase coming? What are your thoughts? You talk like the president sort of, and others have suggested sort of this transitional. Would it be a combination of a whole bunch of different forces? And what role would the Kurds have in all this?
First of all, yes, I take your words as very accurate. It will have to be a reflection of what Iran is. What they're going to do in the future, that's their business. But as the goal, Free French forces were in Great Britain before deploying them after Normandy. We don't have a Normandy because we're not going to be on the ground, but at least from the air. And then, or are they on the inside? Because there are many communities, Iranian communities and forces on the inside. They were right. The ones that we can see in a very vivid way are the Kurds in the northwest of Iran. Even without this war, they have always had clashes with the regime. So they will be there. They're not going to be marching towards anywhere outside Kurdish areas. There have been a debate last week. We're going to launch the Kurds all the way to Tehran. It's not going to happen because Kurds to Tehran, it's like the Druze to the rest of Syria, very small. Then, as of yesterday, we are seeing now the gathering of armed militiamen in Ahwaz, which is the Arab-speaking province of Iran. It has a lot of gas there, a lot of oil. And then on the other side of the country, in the Baluchistan, you also have those networks. But all of these are on the periphery. My question is, when would the youth or the people living in Tehran, the major province, and other main cities, are they going to be armed? Is the United States and Israel, are they going to be helping them? These are questions we can't answer so far at this point in time.
Yeah, and that is the big question. You hit it on the head. Like, what kind of supplies do they have or are they getting from U.S. or Israel or elsewhere? And do you see it being sort of a combination of efforts that they rise up when some of these other groups sort of come in, that it's all sort of coordinated? Because can the people alone really turn the tide from within? Because there still are a lot of IRGC, and I don't know how well-armed. I would assume they're obviously a lot more well-armed than the citizens are.
Oh, by far. Rita, by far. You're talking about a militia that has the form of an army. The IRGC have their own air force. They have their own tanks. They have their own. It's the kind of the Red Guard of the Soviet Union. You know, you have the regular army, but the Red Guard or the Guard are much more powerful than the regular army. So you have absolutely, a point here. The question is going to go back to the White House. They should be in the business of coordinating between all the groups around the periphery. They should also be out of Washington, actually, communicating with leaders maybe based in the diaspora or inside, and they could get outside. So that architecture, we know it is coming. We don't know how much. And I think through your show, I'm advising the president here. We are a little bit late on this. We are very advanced on schedule in destroying the IRGC weapons, that's for sure. But we need to be faster in organizing a task force, under the auspices of our administration and the Israelis in the region, to organize the uprising, the massive uprising of the Iranian people.
Yeah, and coordinating it all, too, and making sure that they're well-armed and maybe have some support, obviously air power, I would assume, at minimum from the U.S. and Israel. What about also, Walid, before we let you go, this new supreme leader, the son of the Ayatollah, who many people are saying is even more hardline than the father? What's your reaction to them announcing this, and do you believe he really is the new, supreme leader, and what does it mean?
Actually, Mujtaba, we know a lot about him through actually other countries, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq mostly. Mujtaba, the only reason for why they brought him and called him the supreme leader is because he spent a lot of time with his father. He knows the friends of his father. He knows what Khamenei the first wanted. And the second reason is his last name, his name recognition. I mean, he's a Khamenei, and that's very important for rank and file in the Guard, in the IRGC. And thirdly, he is under the complete control of the commanders of the IRGC. He doesn't He didn't even have the time in 48 hours to go and build social networks, political networks. He doesn't impress many observers, and I'm one among them. He's not going to be the Napoleon who's going to rise and lead anything. I think the militias are led by their own commanders at this point in time.
So you believe he's just sort of more of a figurehead, if you will?
He is a figurehead until now. Now, with time, we don't know. With time, we have some surprises, some talents. But at this point in time, these were his advantages. Is he knew what his father wanted to do. He can give the trust of the name to the commanders. They could go and do whatever they want and say, well, we have orders from Khamenei II. It simplifies it. But he, as a person, he has not displayed in the past like those strategic talents, like, for example, Soleimani, the one who led the Quds force. These are big guys. But this guy, I don't think at this point in time he will be a major leader. And we don't know what's his fate now with Israel and the United States, especially our president saying, if you don't talk to me, if you don't do what I tell you, you may not be able to rule. These are the words of our president. So it's not easy for him.
I was going to say he may not be around much longer based on the history of leaders there in Iran of late. Well, everybody be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Walid Phares, one of the best in the business. Thank you so much for your perspective, Walid.
Thank you so much, Rita, and good luck.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.